Pretty boys, pretty boys, pretty boys, pretty boys, pretty boys, pretty boys, pretty boys. Hello, welcome to the Nen Show Podcast. This is your host, Craftsdwarf, with my co-host, Mathwiz. Say hello, Mathwiz.
I didn't even have to say it. You beat me to it.
Could have said it again.
I mean, pretty boys, yes. That's it. That's the tweet.
That's it. That's the tweet. That was actually the tweet that I was referencing when you retweeted the last episode, but,
yeah,
anyway,
that's right. I did say that.
Yeah. But it bears repeating. Anyway, so yeah, sorry for the break. You know, things happened. We put it off. Don't worry about it. We're here now. You're here. You're listening. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Comments. You like the comment section this time, apparently.
Yeah. Just there's like, I don't know, a lot of comments in there. There was some by like Mr. Grem, just like talking about sort of like the translation, like Viz's translation, yes. And sort of like the circumstances, right, that
which,
like
it's
influenced
good to
that.
hear. Yeah, kind of what I was guessing, or what we were presuming. But and there was even in the one comment of his, someone replied with an interview that they did with the editor and translator of the manga.
Yeah, that was Lamran Mayasha.
Yes. I didn't get, it's a whole ass podcast, so I didn't get the chance to listen to it.
Yeah, I only saw that, like, in the last half hour or whatever, like, right. Before where you were, because I was, like, looking at comments, but I caught that one kind of last minute, and I'm like, this looks interesting.
Right, so I don't know if I'll get around to listening it to myself, but it's more Saint Seiya content, and from a perspective, like, from an insider perspective, right? Like, that's pretty infrequent, I would say. Right, so it's really cool to have that.
But yeah, and also just like, like why the translation is the way that it is, like tying into the anime and sort of having to go along with those localization choices. But apparently, like, the translator was a big fan of Saint Seiya and like wanted it to be more faithful.
And was apparently even shopping it around to get like a translation, and apparently they were told that the series was too old, which is funny to me because it was like, it was coming out around the same time as Dragon Ball.
Around the same time as Dragon Ball.
And especially coming at it now where it's like it's 2021. And it's like, no, but it's too old, apparently, back in the fucking early 2000s, late 90s, right? So, something about that's just, like, obviously they were looking for, like Naruto and One Piece, I assume, like those kind of series, but,
maybe was it something with the art style? Like, does it look older? I don't, because, Saint Seiya started in, like, 1985-ish, Dragon Ball, so it started after Dragon Ball. So, excuse me.
No, yeah, like we did talk about the art style last time and how, like, I do feel as though, in comparison, like, yeah, Dragon Ball, Fist of the North Star, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, like, it does have a more, like, quote-unquote old look to it, right? But which makes sense considering Kuramada's influences, but, so, I don't know. I don't have a problem with the art. The art's good. But, yeah, I guess, they're lost because they could have translated it earlier, and then the English dub would have had to be, or maybe, follow a more faithful translation, but it didn't, unfortunate. But yeah, it's like One Piece tier of, like, not a problem for me, because, like, I know what it's supposed to be, and it's not, like, heavy changes, like, what, its salary is Sienna, and they're knights instead of saints, and maybe a couple other name changes. Like, that's probably where I might get lost with some apparent other minor name changes, but I don't know what those are, which is, I guess, the problem. So I'll have to look up the changes at some point.
I know the thing that got me in this reading was, like, Unicorn Jabu came back, but it was just Unicorn Jab, which I understand the difference, I think. Or not understand the difference, but, like, why it would be translated that way. Or, like, translated in different ways. Ignore me. Never mind.
Right. Though, for me, Jabu just rolls off the tongue better. But,
speaking of that character, I thought it was really funny. Like, an experience I had in this reading was, like, obviously, all of those characters come back for a cameo in this arc. And I was like, oh, cool, this character does actually do something more. But then, like, reading the comments, I forget which one it was specifically, I think there might have been a couple. Just like you're thinking about Jabu more than Kuramada did. That one was Raphael.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not even.
Mega Rafix is. I know the guy. He. Club fan.
Okay.
So.
Good for you. I'm not part of the. I'm not part of the club.
Good. Or no, I thought you meant like not part of the fan base, and then like good. Don't be a Weep Club fan. But yeah, no, because yeah, we were talking about him for a bit, and yeah, he'll come back in this reading. So.
I wasn't even thinking of like Weeb Club when I said club. That was just the word that came to mind. But I find it funny that it works in both of those ways.
Yeah. Okan Yakin says that like for them Seiya was like a fever dream just because of the way it like introduces mechanics and stuff. And I guess like I can kind of see that, but I feel like, you know, having like Kinnikuman as like, you know, our, you know, we're in post-war arc of the Nen Show, the war being Mathwiz versus Kinnikuman. Like in comparison to that, like okay, yeah, if Saint Seiya is a fever dream, then Kinnikuman's an acid trip, I suppose. So it's just like, yeah, because I guess I understood what they were saying. My first thought was like, I mean, yeah, but you know, Kinnikuman exists and is even more of that. So like, you know, I guess it didn't affect me any with Saint Seiya. Like even the way the reading starts, where I'll talk about it, where it just like brings up psychic powers as like a thing and doesn't go any further than that, where it's just like, yeah, psychic power exists anyway, but there's also Cosmo, and I'm like, wait, hold on, go back to the first one. Psychic powers exist? Like, so, you know, just, yeah, I can see where it comes from, and I want to talk about that a bit, but yeah, just the comment made me think about that.
Yeah, and there were also some comments talking about like the release of the manga, how like
yes, that was,
was, you know, like typical weekly chapters. Yeah, that was one of the comments I'm looking at. And yeah, like so it was like normal weekly chapters, but then like for the volume releases, they kind of like compiled it differently and like, you know,
that
touched
sense,
it up and
right.
whatnot, which is interesting. Like, you know, from what I was gathering from, what was the other comment that said that I saw? I see Jay also mentioned like some other sort of like older jump titles that kind of had something similar. And
no, yeah, I remember JoJo chapters being divided into parts, but I don't remember them being recompiled as one chapter in the volume releases, which is, you know, I haven't read JoJo in a while, so you know, don't ask me. But because I feel like I've seen that before, but Saint Seiya is the first one that I can't remember any off the top of my head. But yeah. Box Story had a few comments, and I liked them, but my biggest takeaway that I thought was funny was because they've talked about Bleach a bit, and they mentioned how like with Bleach it's the teleports behind you, but with Saint Seiya apparently it's a meme in like Latin American communities that the face plants happen a lot, and I haven't really noticed that. But
you haven't noticed the face plants? I'm surprised.
Somehow, like I feel like I can imagine them in my head, but I haven't really picked up on it as like it's well, like, thing that's happening a lot.
Even before reading that comment, like, you know, I think last time I talked about, you know, how like there's the big spreads of like the super artsy like attacks being thrown, but otherwise it's just kind of like character flings their arm out doing a thing or something, and character is flying back. No, and the face plant. I think that comment is really funny though, because like I did read that and was going through more of it, and now every time it's like, yep, it's there. The other thing it made me think of was the pro wrestler Ric Flair. He has like a flop that he does where he just kind of like face plants, and I'm just like, Saint Seiya fights be like.
All right, you're contractually obligated to make that a new Mathwiz tweet. Where you just find a gif of Ric Flair face planting, and it's like Saint Seiya fights, and that's it. That's the whole tweet.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, there are definitely like I'm looking even just in the Discord gifs, and I am seeing that there are gifs of that. I'm gonna post one in there for you. Not that this will show up in the podcast, but.
I don't think I have any specific ones to respond to. I just wanted to note that one, when I went to go check comments, the number of views was exactly 666, which I thought was funny for a series called Saint Seiya. I don't know why. And in general, I don't know, it was nice to see how like positive people are, like just casually mention, oh yeah, Saint Seiya is like my favorite anime. And I'm like, that's cool. right? Like just seeing, because I knew about its like popularity in like literally everywhere but like America, but it's neat to like see that because I mean, I assume that we have a lot of viewers in a lot of different countries. At the very least, that's true of my Discord server. But yeah, it's cool.
And I also thought, you were talking about box stories comments, but you did not mention the part that kind of stood out to me, aside from like the faceplant stuff and the Bleach parallels and whatnot, was like, the talk about like taking inspiration from shoujo manga again.
Oh yeah.
Which
that was,
is
I did, yeah.
Pretty cool. I can't remember if we would have talked about that last time, if that would have come up or not.
I did mention it as being like, it was a series that did catch on with women, but I don't remember hearing that specifically I took influence from shoujo manga or why, or where is it rather, like, because, I mean, I noticed some things that reminded me of shoujo manga, but, if you happen to have the interview, that would be cool, or wherever he allegedly said that, that would be helpful, but still need to note, but yeah, I don't have any more to respond to, so.
There are quite a few in here, so I'm doing like one last quick scroll through. I don't think so.
All right, into the reading. So we're getting into the next part, or the real part of Sanctuary. Like, I actually think that you could, in theory, divide like it into two arcs, where it's like the Galaxian tournament, and then technically the interruption with like Iki, and then after that, like, I guess the Silver Saints would kind of transition them into the like the Sanctuary arc proper, which is where this reading is.
Yeah.
But, well, the way it starts off is like I was talking about earlier, how it's just like, oh yeah, there's 5 senses, but actually there's 6 senses, but actually there's 7 senses. And really I guess like, because that definitely mechanically gets noted like later with the way characters will like cut off their senses to strengthen, their cosmo. But like, I guess really what I was thinking about is how it reminded me of some other series, which I guess is kind of like nudging me in the direction of just like a way, like, I guess culturally certain sci-fi things were treated in a certain time period, because like, it just kind of like brings up psychic powers as like, yeah, these are real, but then it like moves on. And I was just thinking about how like this is also, and well, also even the fact that Cosmo is sort of taken in, from like, we have the Big Bang, and the idea that like, oh, everything in the universe was just at the same point, and then it exploded outwards, and everything we're made up is just space dust having changed form over the eternity of the universe and all that, which is kind of also stuff. Both of these are kind of touched on in Akira, where, especially if you read the manga, it goes into like creation of the universe and how the psychic power is linked to that. And like, especially, have you watched Super High Patch Wolf's fake psychics video? Yeah, so, and he goes into, like, and, I think, if judging from, like, Pokemon or Mother/Earthbound or 20th Century Boys, I guess, like, the fake psychics, maybe, like, if you were a kid, and you saw that shit, you'd be like, holy shit, that's awesome, right? I can do psychic powers, like, at the untapped potential of the human brain, and that sort of, like, childhood, and then, of course, you grow up, and it's like, oh, psychic powers aren't real, where, like, Pokemon and Earthbound kind of like use that framework to get across that sort of like Pokemon is all about like Satoshi, or the creator's childhood, and getting that across to kids in the 90s. And so psychic powers are just there and they're real. And with 20th Century Boys, it takes more like 20th Century Boys is its own deal, but it definitely like goes a bit darker in some ways. But so I was just thinking about how like the way that this 80s manga is just sort of like taking psychic powers as like fact, almost just kind of like, I don't know, it speaks to what little I might be picking up on from the era of just like, psychic powers as this like potentially real thing that people thought about, and that was interesting, especially like younger people, I imagine. So I don't know, it just made me think about that. So I'm on a real tangent. It doesn't have anything to Saint say it. It's just something I've been thinking about for a while now, and I realized like, and here it is again. So which I guess it's just like, because even though Saint Seiya is like inspired for all this Greek stuff, like this page in particular, just this first page of this volume, just really sticks out to me as like being like of this specific time period. I feel, and that's something I would have to do more research about, but it's just it came to mind. So
I will say I'm glad that like in one of the I don't even remember when it showed up, if it was like the middle of a chapter or the end of volume thing, But like, I am glad that there was that chart of all of the battles that happened in this arc and like who the characters are, because I'm like, by the end I think I was kind of forgetting some of the early fights or like the mid fights. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, it does go through a lot of battles, and I was even confused for a sec because it goes into this Horus fight, and I was like, wait, did we get the Ares fight? Because I forgot that Mew was Ares, and like they weren't actually an opponent who they had to fight. So like right away, I was getting confused and feeling dumb, I guess. But yeah, because it's just like goes through a bunch of fights with no real breaks. As we were kind of aware that Saint Seiya was going to be like, if not even just from what we've heard, because I think.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to mention how people have been saying that since we read Bleach. I'm pretty sure because that was when you really got into the you really noticed how you just don't tend to like a bunch of fights strung together like that, and especially reading these older series like Kinnikuman or Dragon Ball, where there isn't a lot of breathing room, right? It's just like come up in so like the fact that it's a thing in Saint Seiya isn't surprising, I guess. But
I think the other thing that kind of confused me a bit, like I remember getting to the end and like half of the gold saints are left, and I could not remember who any of them were outside of like the ones who had been characters before this arc. Like a mix of like not remembering which was which, and also like which characters died and like weren't around anymore, or died in air quotes. Maybe they'll come back later in the story.
I think the reading ends with everyone's fucking dead, but it's like, but there's still 2 arcs to go. So I imagine they'll get better. But and what I was gonna say is like, as far as like keeping characters apart, that maybe in the anime that's a little easier, just because like I've seen the armors and they're not like, they don't just color all the armors bronze, silver, or gold. Even on the volume covers, they're very vibrant.
Well, yeah, right? And also getting different like hair colors and stuff. Anything to like. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say that like the designs have same face, but they do look. There are similar. I don't know. Like there are things that kind of trip me up with them.
Well, because like I've also experienced a similar thing in the manga series Claymore, which in which like all the characters in the main like group wear the exact same like white armor and have white hair. So even if they do look really different, face wise and stuff, like there's going to be some level of like you glance at them and you have to like think like, even though they clearly look different if you look at them side by side, but at a glance you have to like think like, who am I looking at, right? And Saint Seiya doesn't have it that strongly for sure, but just the fact that in the black and white they do tend to look similar-ish at a first glance, kind of like out of the corner of your eye. So on some level it's like, okay, yeah, especially if you have a lot of characters that maybe don't stand out at the end of the day, then like, oh my god, it's you, like, okay, which one are you again? Like I can understand why someone would have that problem, right? Like I don't think I was super confused, but there's definitely characters that like don't stand out as much, right? It's, even among the gold saints, but so I could see where you're coming from, basically. But yeah, we start off with Shaka and Iros, or I hope I'm pronouncing that right, or Ira, or Iros is the Sagittarius one, I think. But yeah, they establish how like gold saints are a big deal, and their fight and stuff is like, what it's like, either it goes really quickly or it goes over the course of like days, where if one of them fucks up, then it's over. 1,000-day showdown, that's what it's called. Like the scale of the arc does get kind of crazy. But anyway, the Cancer Knight comes into while Shiryu's training. Oh yeah, that's right, and Hyoga's mentor got rid of his mother, so kind of setting up the stakes and stuff even before they get to Sanctuary proper. Oh yeah, there was an interesting moment with Seiya where he's walking with Miho, and he's going to Sanctuary, and she's just kind of remarking on how like they have to risk their lives a lot. But he sort of notes that maybe like, oh, in a way we're special, perhaps.
I'm thinking back to the in the last episode where I talked about like the Ashita no Joe parallels and how like Saori kind of being this almost like Yoko sort of, and so with this I'm like, oh hey, it's Noriko.
Now that you mention it, like, once you said Ashita, I was like, oh, I think I see where you're going. Because, yeah, this definitely, like, the way they're just, like, walking along, and it almost has, like, the energy of, Joe talking to Noriko and the burnt white hot ash when he first mentions that.
Yeah,
right? Like,
I feel like this character, like, with Saori, like, in this arc, I feel like she's kind of, like, I don't think the Yoko parallel holds up as well as it felt in the first arc.
No, because she's fucking, like, dead.
Well, I guess that's true. But yeah, that was just what was going through my mind.
No, that makes sense. But yeah, everyone arrives to go out to Sanctuary. They kind of get a rundown of the structure, where it's basically like they have to go through the gauntlet of the 12 shrines before they can get to the master at the Shrine of Athena. But of course, Saori gets the arrow in her chest, which, sort of creates a timer where they have to... they only have 12 hours, and if they don't do it in time, then they can't save her. See, after they get their armor repaired, I guess we get the first fight, which was Taurus. What did you say, or what do you think about the first fight?
I remember this guy being kind of cool at, like, the end of it, where he's like, oh, like, I recognize your strength. He just kind of had the vibe of, like, the battle, like, rival guy, maybe not rival, but, like, guy who defines himself through battle, and so makes friends through battle. I don't know. That felt very shonen.
No, yeah, I like, because, like, overall the arc has them going through all the gold saints, even though they're just bronze saints. But I think they do a pretty good job of showing why, just because, like, they're, even if they're overall weaker, they're able to, like, amplify their cosmos in the heat of a single moment, and, that can be enough at times. But, even the way it starts off is good, because, like, they don't outright defeat, like, Taurus isn't just a forgettable jobber, right? The fact that he does have some doubts about the master, and, he, like, they don't outright defeat him, they just break his horn, and he's like, alright, I respect it, you guys can go ahead. He doesn't just, like, get jobbed, and, forgotten, or at least, I don't know about forgotten, and I have no idea what the story will do from this point on, but definitely, like, it's just a good way to set up, like, an arc where they defeat all of them, because, like, they're gonna grow through their battles, so, they can't just start off and just defeat the first one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I thought it was good.
He was one of the surviving gold saints who I recognized, so, that's good for him.
And of course, they do really, like, bring up the cutting off the senses to strengthen Cosmo thing, which also comes up later with, like, Shiryu in particular. Then we go to the fight against the mysterious Gemini Knight, who, especially, like, once they said, like, oh, the master is, like, they're, like, two people, and I'm like, oh, like Gemini. And sure enough, they, like, shortly after that, they just, heavily hinted at it, before finally revealing it in the end.
I thought that this was interesting, at least, like, the part where, like, Shiryu, because he's blind, like, was able to recognize that nobody was there, and so they just kind of got to pass on through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you get some more stuff with Shun. And Iki, I think Iki might be my favorite character so far. Like, he's just got a presence, and he also is in my favorite fight in Saint Seiya so far, as we'll talk about. But, like, because I did, even the moment where, during the Gemini fight, where, the master sort of senses, like, just a powerful Cosmo, and, like, it just the way it goes to the volcano, and it's like, it's fucking Iki, and he's just the Phoenix, and he's sitting there with just a big Phoenix behind him. It's a cool panel. And there's another moment I like art-wise that comes up later that I'll bring up because it's really fucking cool. But also Shun, like, sending his chain through space to attack the master is, like, fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it's a cool little encounter. Alright, we get Hyoga fighting Kamas and getting frozen in the big block of ice. I will say I don't think I dislike Hyoga, but I think he is personally maybe my least favorite of the main saints. Because I would say, like, if I had to pick between, Hyoga, Seiya, Shun, Iki, and Shiryu, if you even consider Iki one of the main saints, like, I guess Hyoga would be at the bottom of those five, so...
I don't know, I felt like in the last arc, Hyoga was kind of interesting as, like, the sort of antagonisty kind of character who, had his, like, character development. And, like, the thing with his mother was interesting, but, I also kind of get that feeling where, like, his fights in this arc didn't really do much for me.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we'll maybe talk about it a little bit later. Speaking of fight, okay, here's a fight that I did like though. Shiryu versus Cancer, the Cancer Knight, where he's just like an evil piece of shit.
Yeah.
But Shiryu's cool. Like the fact that like Cancer manipulates like the afterlife and shit, but Shiryu he's died so many times he doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's so good. Incredible.
Right, and then like the way Cancer just kind of doesn't even care, like, good and evil don't matter, or he's, so he just sort of accepts evil, but at the end of the day, the souls that he took weighed him down, while Shiryu was, kind of being protected by Sunrei is the name I have written down of the and because she helped him, and it was a good fight. And then we get Ira versus Seiya.
Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce that name.
I'm trying. But he's kind of being, his mind has been altered. But, oh yeah, I forgot about Cassius, the guy from the first chapter.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to come back. There were a lot of characters, like, last podcast we'd been wondering, like, whatever happened to Unicorn? I wasn't expecting all of the other, so all the characters who were literally, like, brutally murdered, came back. And then, like, I don't even remember exactly what happened to Cassius. That was, like, the first chapter. But, it was interesting to see him back.
Because, yeah, he came back. He had a moment where, he goes in and ends up dead. Lots of sacrifice and self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
But, because, and then, Sei is able to knock, him out of his, Leo Knight. I think he's the Leo Knight. I can just say Leo Knight. But he's able to knock him out of his, like, control, basically. And, even get stronger from the fight with the light speed punches, Leo was using light speed, and Sei uses light speed later. Anyway, then we get, Shaka comes in, and, he's, like, kicking everybody's ass, and I fucking love the page where fucking Iki comes in, and he's just, like, it's just a full page of him just, like, slowly walking in, and the fire effect is really fucking cool. I'm, like, losing my mind, because I'm like, oh, it's fucking Iki! And yeah, this is my favorite fight in the series so far. What, did you have any thoughts on it, or should I just go in?
Just go for it.
Well, like, okay, so you have Shaka, like, sending Iki through all the, like, various realms, because, like, he, like, again, it's funny that this is, like, the Greek series, but here's Buddhism, lots of it, where, Shaka shed himself his earthly desires, so he sends Phoenix through, like, the realms of you reincarnate through, and he's a phoenix, so, like, reincarnation is his thing. And so the way he just, like, improves, and like, there's even the flashback with Shun where he's just he's gonna keep walking because he's even kind of seen the afterlife before, and like there's even the part where Shaka has him Iki on the Buddha's palm, which is a reference to, I believe, a story in which Sun Wukong, or Goku, is the Monkey King is fighting Buddha, and he can't escape the Buddha's palm because the Buddha is just beyond him, but Iki is able to, like, through the endless, like, rising from the ashes, he's able to, like, surpass that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, reincarnation. And I don't know, I thought it was fucking cool.
Yeah, no, like, I think this is one of the fights where, like, it got lost in all the fights for me, but the way you describe it sounds cool.
And I don't know, there's just a lot of cool art stuff, like the way he used the one Buddhist imagery a lot.
Yeah.
And then, like, lots of galaxies and shit, like, it's a lot just happening. But yeah, I was really into it, so...
Yeah, Saint Seiya art good is kind of an unspoken part of the podcast at this point. but it still bears
like
repeating.
even though we're saying it, well, even though, I mean, yeah, exactly, like we've said it a lot, but I think, you know, we could stand to say it more just because, like, damn, like there's one, I think we're getting to it. Oh, okay, I completely forgot about this because they get to the Libra one and it breaks into their weapons, and I kind of don't remember them using their weapons.
I remember Shiryu breaking Hyoga out of the block of ice, but I think that's it.
Yeah, that was it. I just wait, was that really it? Because yeah, they break Hyoga out, and so he can revive, but I don't remember anything happening with the weapons after that. So, but anyway, oh yeah, that's right. They did a thing with Shun and Hyoga, where after Hyoga was broken free from the ice, like Shun kind of helped him in a kind of like, I think they compared it to like a motherly way, which, you know, Hyoga having the motherly relationship, which I guess now I think about it is maybe a thing because he lost his mother, presumably, like, you know, no one dies in Saint Seiya, at least, you know, but, you know, so she could come back, but like, you know, he was able to like at least overcome that loss by making another kind of connection through Shun, I suppose, and so he comes in to save the day against the Scorpio Knight. And while they're doing that, Athena or Saori comes under attack, so the Bronze Saints come to the rescue, and it's like, oh my god, it's Jabu! He's here to do something.
Yeah, he did something! I think it's so, like, disappointing, like, hearing people talk about this character, like, oh, he doesn't, you know, you're thinking about him more than Kuramada did, because it's just like, I thought he had, like, an interesting character thing going on, and his conflict with Seiya was neat, and it's just not gonna go anywhere, I guess.
Or at least not farther than that, right? Because, like, you know, he did lose their battle, but, you know, that's, yeah, there it is.
Wait, when did they fight?
Or wait, did they have, never mind.
I remember, like, Iki showed up and took him out, because he was fighting Shun.
That's right, you're right.
So they didn't even get to fight.
Okay, yeah, never mind, I take it back. My memory.
Especially because, like, he seems like a character who would have one of the closest connections to Athena. So it just, I don't
coming
understand.
Back to protect her makes sense, and especially when, like, well, that's the whole thing, is that the saints are supposed to protect Athena, and instead you have all these gold saints who are more protecting the idea rather than like the actual like will and spirit of Athena. Because they're just like, you know, they're protecting the master, and they don't know that the master is not quite as they seem. But
and yeah, all the other ones are there, and you know, like, it was still a cool moment. You know, you get the shonen power of friendship. Everybody shows up and saves the day moment. It was cool.
But yeah, I don't remember having much to say about Hyoga versus Scorpio.
I really like the 2-page spread where they do, you know, the classic animals in the background, and it's just like the scorpion and the swan and all the snowflakes, and ooh, it's good.
Also, you see, now I'm picking up all the face plants because, like, this is the second time today I've seen, because maybe that's because I split up my reading across, like, there was like a week between, or, you know, because I read like half the reading before we delayed the recording, and I did the second half more recently. So, like, I saw Iki, like, face planting over the cosmos, and now I'm seeing Hyoga face planting over the cosmos. And just specifically, like, the background there against Wolf being, like, lying on the ground is that now I see the meme. Why it's a meme? Because, like, I don't know, there's a mood to it, right? Just like, I'm dead, but also the universe. But yeah, anyway, the Hogan Scorpio fight rounds out, where he's able to sort of make Scorpio question what he's been doing. Like, you know, they're putting so much, like, their lives on the line for, you know, Saori, then, you know, maybe, well, like it kind of goes back to what they were talking about in the first arc, where it's like, you know, oh, you're not allowed to use your cloth for personal gain. But it's like, well, would they be putting this much, you know, effort and will into this if it was just for personal gain? And so, you know, here's that kind of reflected in the Sanctuary arc. But yeah, the Sagittarius cloth sends its message. You know, he sort of like passes on his, or Iros, yeah, that's the right name for the Sagittarius one. Passes his will on to the saints to protect Athena. Okay, I think the Capricorn fight is another one I forgot about. But it was a Shiryu fight, so maybe I think I'm starting to remember it as I look through it again. Oh yeah, that's right, I forgot. He just, like, I think it was an earlier fight, but he just, like, got his eyesight back.
Yeah.
Also, I'm noticing it again, because where there's like a panel during this fight where Shiryu is kind of like split in half and one half is inverted. And I noticed that, I think it was with Gemini, where to sort of represent the illusion effect, he like did a stripe inversion thing. I think, or maybe it was a different moment. But, I don't know, I think it was a cool way to represent the illusion and just like stuff going on. But I do like the 2-page spread with the Ascendant Dragon Blow, where you have all the different dragons as Shiryu
just takes the guy to space.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, it's a little silly, but it's still cool, I guess. Like, it can be both.
It's
not
just
even the first time it happens.
Dare I say, it's galaxy brain.
But yeah, Shiryu, he makes a sacrifice.
I also like how this kind of comes back later, where like the guy was talking about how like, oh, you'll burn up before me, but then he did his own sacrifice thing where he gave his cloth to Shiryu to protect him, and he took the sacrifice, and it's like, ooh,
yeah.
So yeah, lots of like that sacrifice. I wanted to think of a different word other than theme, but I couldn't.
Well, and one thing I'm noticing is that I see very rarely is where, because 2-page spreads are very normal, but I feel like 99% of the time they stick with the right to left, where during the Shiryu fight, there's 2 that I would say are meant to be, like, you're supposed to turn the book and read it up to down, like, up to down, almost.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at the one at the very end where it's just like the 3 saints on the Shun, Seiya and Hogan at the bottom, and they're like Shiryu, and there's a tower, and there's Shiryu out there in the background, but the text is completely like sideways because it's supposed to be read like but I'm reading it digitally, so I have to like turn my head like I'm a fucking owl, and it's like so I guess there's a reason to buy the Saint Seiya volumes if you can, and yeah, there was one earlier where we see his back, the dragon marking on his back, but I mean, I have no problem with it because, like, again, if I had a physical volume, it wouldn't be a problem because, like, that's the cool thing about having physical books is you can move it as you need to.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just part of the medium, but it's just interesting to realize that through in a digital sense and not being like, I'll just pick up my monitor and just know that I can't do that. Anyway, then we get the sort of grudge match between Hyoga and his former master Kamis, who, kind of wanted him to outgrow his, like, need for his mother. I don't remember how much I have to say about the fight, but I do think it's cool that, like, it's more self-sacrifice, of course, but just the way he, like, lets his... Because, like, the whole thing with Absolute Zero is that, like, because what I remember from learning about in school is that, you can't, like, true Absolute Zero can't exist because something that's Absolute Zero is always, like, touching something that isn't Absolute Zero.
Yeah.
So it's like it's more about how close can you get to that. So like and they even mention that it's like it's just like taking energy away from things, but Hyoga is able to get closest to it by putting more of his life on the line. And like when the heat of his life force drains away, he gets even closer to Absolute Zero. And I'm like, oh. So I just thought that was cool, big brained, as you might say.
I think a thing that was also kind of occurring to me, like. Thinking back to the Gemini fight where, like, Shiryu being blind, like, he was able to kind of, like, perceive beyond the illusion, and that kind of sort of, like, the gradual build up to, like, the 7th sense stuff of, like, characters becoming stronger by, like, Iki does it, and Hyoga has some moments with it, of just, like, the characters losing their senses, and, like, then... by losing the 6 senses, getting the 7th sense, and going even further beyond.
Yeah, and I guess thinking about it again is because, like, I think, and maybe this is, like, part of my, like, personal beliefs coming up question, and also just, like, looking at it retroactively through modern series, because, like, they do mention that, like, self-sacrifice, there's something noble about it, but also tragic, right? And here you have all these characters who are able to, like, win these fights through, like, by what they're able to give up, right? Where the Gold Knights aren't able to make these sacrifices and risk themselves like this, so they're not able to, like, have their Cosmo elevate to these levels because they don't, they're only fighting for this idea rather than something they, like, genuinely care about, right? And so in its own context, it's fine, but it's also just, like, I don't know, like, when I think about series like, say, One Piece, where, Luffy does do these self-sacrificing, like, Gear Second in Enies Lobby, but, like, it's ultimately, like, a flawed power of his. Like, it hurts him. He shouldn't do that, right? Like, the series is more critical about that kind of self-sacrifice. You know, so, and I guess, like, it's thinking about just Japan and how, you know, and maybe the part of this is because I just read a samurai manga, but, you know, like ritual suicide for reasons of honor, and just, you know, being completely beholden to your lord, comparing that to, like, workplaces and how, you know, salarymen will literally work themselves to death because, you know, they're trying to be good employees, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's just changing times, I guess, is what I'm trying to point out about how, like, yeah, here's a series in the 80s that kind of goes like, man, self-sacrifice is kind of tragic, but it's also kind of cool, where, you know, from a more, I don't think that's necessarily like the case nowadays. I don't think modern series really like agree with that message. And maybe, you know, I personally don't either, but it's still, you know, again, like, it's just, I guess that's one thing that really struck out to me about this reading, is how much, like, Saint Seiya is, like, a product of its time. And not in a bad way, you know. But it's just it's just interesting for me to think about. And also anything to make the episode longer than that one Gintama episode.
No, I think it was an interesting thing. We haven't had to force anything yet, I don't feel like. Like, I know I joked about, like, oh, I'm going to pull up all these comments to pad out the length of the episode. But except, like, the comments were actually good, so I didn't have to do that.
Right. But anyway, I think we get to the last fight, I think, before the Master, which is Pisces.
Pretty shoujo boy! I love the design. I just immediately saw, like, the first spread, and I'm just, like, with the rose in the teeth, and, like, the little, like, dot under the eye, and the eyelashes, and the
Yeah, well, like, there was another pretty... who was the Silver Saint who was very pretty that Seiya fought?
Misty?
Yes, that was it. Thank you. Where it's like, Kuramada's like, no, we need to go prettier. Like, it surpassed the levels of pretty we've never been, those that have never been seen before. I don't know, like, because yeah, Pisces is even.
I felt like this one in particular, like the shoujo sort of look hit me more, because like the eyelashes and like there was like the lips and stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, that's a good character design. When I think of, I'm
like,
looking respectfully.
And, like, you know, looking back to, you know, Rose of Versailles, I don't know how much, like, I mean, it's in the title, so I'd assume there'd be rose imagery in that, like, really notable, like, shoujo manga that or an anime that I haven't read or watched. But also, like, looking forward, there's Sailor Moon, which is a shoujo series that has Tuxedo Mask, or there's Kurama. Like, roses are just, you know, like, yeah, even though, like, yeah, I guess, like, those characters, at least the examples I'm thinking of are all, from the Shounen series, yeah, they're all dudes. But, you know, Sailor Moon is a shoujo series. But, like, I don't know, just something I was thinking about.
There was also, when they're, like, climbing up to the palace, and Seiya's like, is he really a man? And, Shun being like, I don't like those kinds of comments. Comments like, does a real man, like, or what is it? A real man does or whatever. It's just like, yes, go off, king.
And yeah, that kind of factored into the fight, because Shun is, you know, on the effeminate side, and, you know, like, has likely been teased for, you know, being very pretty, but, like, they even, or Shun even says during the fight that, you know, he promised his brother that he would, you know, fight to the end, like a man, so he decided, you know, he gives it his all in the battle. Like, you know, I guess that's where, you know, he stands, rather than just, like, you know, because he is still effeminate, but, you know, I guess that's what matters to him. And, like, we get the flashback of his training.
This was the gender fight of the reading. Although, I mean, with, like, some of those lines, I maybe would have hoped that it was, like, more gender than it was. It was kind of just, like, you know, it's not that it wasn't there. It was just kind of, like, a relatively standard fight.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, Mathwiz, what are you looking for? I don't know. I can't answer that question.
It would kind of need to see, like, you know, something a bit more. Maybe there's also something that I just didn't think about, but you know, no, I understand. I mean, I'm always trying to look for more, like, interesting points of contrasts in fights and stuff, just because that's, you know, I'm used to the language of, like, how fights work and, you know, what they're, you know, so
yeah.
But yeah, especially when they started the fight with that one, because especially when they go into the flashback, there's a whole thing about, like, Shun's kind of, like, untapped power that he usually doesn't have because he's so gentle, but that does come out, and he's able to defeat Pisces for that, with it rather.
I do think it is unfortunate, because, like, with Misty and also with Pisces, that, like, they both seem to be dead, which is the way that I thought of it in my head is, like, Kuramada really be like, there is not allowed to be a boy prettier than Shun living in this series. Okay, now I'm kind of going off into the weeds. Let me be indulgent, damn it.
But yeah, Shun is a good boy, and defeats Pisces, and there it is. That's it. They're gone.
Very sad.
She'll be back, but then we get Seiya helped by Marin before he goes in to face the Master. The Master's not as pretty, but he is still pretty.
Pretty evil. I don't know.
You got me there, actually. But yeah, then we find out what the whole deal was, where the Gemini Knight and the Sagittarius, I think it was the Sagittarius Knight? Yeah, they were in, they were the ones who could have been the Master, but, the Gemini Knight was not allowed that position because he was, there was an evil in his heart, which I took to be, his envy, because, he even said, no, I am more loyal, and I am more benevolent, and he's basically saying he's better than Sagittarius Knight. Words are hard. But it's actually because of that need to be better and that envy and that desire for the master position that he had the evil in his heart. Right? So, but yeah, he killed the master, and that was his deal. But yeah, Seiya is able to pull off some light speed punches. And I like how he's like, did you think of a few punches at light speed could defeat me? He just shrugs them off. But he has a moment with Shun. The Master continues to be self-righteous about, because they do bring up something setting up in the next arcs where apparently Earth needs to be strong so that it can resist the potential invasion of Poseidon or Hades, which, I wonder what the next two arcs are called. Oh, look. Poseidon and Hades. Right, so, the way he sort of, tries to be dominant, I guess, he is trying to, protect Earth at the end of the day, but he's just, doing this in a really shitty and corrupt way. But yeah, Ikki comes in to help. I like how he kind of uses his illusion of death. Or no, actually, that's right. It was, because he was made to injure himself, he was able to break free of the control, and so he didn't actually cut off Seiya's head. Oh wow, I skipped ahead for the flashback. I'm only just now getting it to in the pages. But yeah, Seiya is sort of, friendship power. He gets the power of everyone. They all give him his cosmo.
Oh my god, that spread. Initially when I looked at this, I'm like, okay, I see Pegasus, and I see Athena, and then I see what I couldn't make out that other animal. I'm like, bear, wolf. I don't know.
There's chains. Stupid. I'm looking at it now.
But yeah, I see the dragon kind of in the corner, and I see the phoenix up in the top, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, this is. I would love to see a version of this without the it would only exist in an art book, I assume, without the text bubbles. Or,
yeah.
But it's a cool spread, and you never underestimate the powers of friendship, and the immortal words of, I think it was Musica from Rave Master. But it's good.
But yeah, I think that I was also just you know what, face plant meme and whatever that. As long as we can just get this the spreads like this, if this is where the time and the real attention to detail is going to, then you know what, I'll take an entire chapter of face plants. This is good shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the art is really cool, as been mentioned, but again, needs to be mentioned. But yeah, Saga, who his name is easy to pronounce. I don't know. I've just been calling the Master. He's defeated when Seiya gets to Athena's shield, and is able to, that sort of resonating with Athena's staff, is able to defeat Saga. And yeah, there was a little comment about how she, she's back, and of course she's Athena, but she goes to see, the rest of the saints, and Mew mentions how, she's going to become a goddess, so she can only be a girl for a little while longer. So they just sort of let her have this moment. Because she even mentions how she doesn't want to be a goddess, but she's still going to take on that responsibility. But
yeah, I know I said that during the fights and whatnot, some things kind of got lost in the shuffle for me. But getting to the end of the arc and the way it all concluded and stuff, I'm like, man, I'm like really excited to see where this goes. And I think definitely as well, like, this arc in particular, I really could feel the, like, how this was an inspiration for Soul Society kind of thing. Especially with, like, Saga, like, betraying the former master and sort of, like... So you kind of get that similar thing where, like, the characters working for the system in this case are kind of, like, have kind of, like, infighting against themselves and... Yes. The characters from, like, the outside, and, like, so kind of like how Ichigo and Ko were, like, like, outside threats to Soul Society. You get, like, the
and they
the
pulled
Bronze
some people
Saints.
to their side, and some people stayed resolute with in alliance with the system, right?
But
and
then,
like,
by the end of it, they're all kind of, like, on the same page and, like, ready to fight, like, the next thing. Mm-hmm. It was really interesting for that to kind of click, over the course of this reading for me. Like, I think especially at the end and, where you really find out, like, what's going on with Saga, that's when it really, like, clicked for me of, like, oh, this is kind of like Bleach, except obviously it came first.
Yeah. I'm definitely, like, curious to see where it goes.
Which means if it's like Bleach, that must mean Sanctuary's the best arc in the series, right? And it's all downhill from here.
Some people were mentioning how about, that general, or at least, it's a common enough take that, Sanctuary is the best arc in the series. What we should take that to mean is that and because I've seen, like, other takes that, the people think that Poseidon and Hades are better, and so I have a feeling that we're going to find them more interesting. Just like
I think
we also found the later Bleach arcs more interesting.
Because like thinking of the Soul Society parallels as well, of like how both of these arcs kind of like in a way like set the groundwork for like what is to come, because like we have all these characters and we know the mystery of like Sanctuary and stuff, and like we've kind of figured that stuff out, and it's clearly leading into something bigger, which is I don't know. I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yep. I mean, the main characters are all dead. I hope they get better. They'll just, like, wake up and it's like, yeah, I'm okay. I took a million, like, say it took, like, 2 Galaxian explosions, like, basically, like, big bangs, and he's just, like, he just walks it off, I guess. Like, I don't know. I don't mind. I just think it's a little funny. Although I guess I was going to note how, because at the end, on, like, the last page, Muse sort of says, that, maybe the one who suffered the most was Saga, who was caught between good and evil, which I guess I kind of took to be like, well, the other characters were, like, pretty resolute in their ideals, though the the Gold Saints eventually started to shift and doubt their ideals, but I guess the point was, like, Saga was the one caught directly between them, where the protagonists were the one who, like, they never doubted themselves, and they were rightfully so, but I don't know, so that was just thinking about.
I also, something that I took note of at, like, the end of that volume were, like, the character profiles, and it's, like, Seiya, age 13, Shiryu, 14. I'm like, no fucking way. These characters look, it's just that interesting thing with, like, with the art style, I guess, where, like, you can have characters look like they're in their 20s or 30s, or at least, like, at the very least, like, adults, and it's like, nah.
My mind just kind of jumped to, like, maybe at, like, probably, like, later teens, right? Like 16 or 17, not, like, literal fucking child. I didn't even notice, actually.
I just, like, saw that, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, like, it shouldn't surprise me, but still, like, seeing it, I was just like, huh, okay.
I figure it's part of the just, like, because, as far as never mind, take it back. I was going to say something, but I realized I was wrong immediately. But also there was a Hyoga focused chapter that I didn't really have anything to say about, so,
same.
It's not that we didn't read it, or, what was that?
I said same. Like, I also read it, and just, I read it.
I just wanted to bring it up just so, like, we didn't forget about it. Like, we didn't not read it. We just, like, that sure was a chapter. I just don't have much to say about it, personally. And, like, we both kind of agree that Hyoga is our personal least favorite of the cast. Thus far, he might get some really great shit later, but, because, like, I do kind of, like, I'm not going to get my hopes up super, super high, but I do kind of expect the next 2 readings to be even more enjoyable. Just, from what I've heard, it just seems like I'll like them more.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, next time we are reading volumes 14 to 18, so it'll be an even shorter reading, the shortest yet, but the one after that will be fairly long, like 9 volumes or 10 volumes or so. So, yeah, I know. But anyway, thank you for listening. Be sure to leave any comments. We like this batch, so hopefully you guys keep it up, and we will see you next time.